This episode is brought to you by Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus has movies. So many movies. The movies you've seen 1,000 times and could watch 1,000 more. Iconic movies your friends can't believe you haven't seen. New movies, classic movies, new takes on classic movies. So whether you're into Top Gun or The Naked Gun, Mean Girls or Mission Impossible, Smurfs or Sonic the Hedgehog, there's a mountain of movies to discover on Paramount Plus. Start streaming today.
Welcome to PeopleTech, the podcast of WorkforceAI.news. I'm Mark Pfeffer. Today, I'm speaking with Rolf Illenberger, the CEO of VRDirect. Their tools allow businesses to create and share virtual reality projects without needing the requisite technical skills. With all the buzz going on about AI, we can lose track of other technologies whose capabilities and use are noticeably increasing. We're going to talk about VR's development, its audiences, and how AI fits into the equation. All on this edition of PeopleTech. Hey, Rolf, welcome. Could you briefly just tell me a little bit about VRDirect? What is it that you do?
Sure. So our mission at VRDirect is to make it as easy as possible for anyone to create VR content. So that's really what we're here for. The best way to think about it is a solution like PowerPoint for VR. So a very easy software tool that allows anyone to create, host, and share VR projects without any specific skill set. You don't need to understand, game engine coding like Unity or Unreal, or worry about the different devices that are out there. With our software solution, anyone can just go ahead and create VR projects and share them with the outside world.
VR is really fascinating, and it's always seemed like it's a very promising, very exciting medium. But on the other hand, you don't hear about it as much as you do other types of media. How do you feel about the industry's growth, both how it's been growing and how you think it will grow moving forward?
Yeah. I mean, arguably, VR has quite a history already. Some say 2 or 3 decades already. So it has been quite a journey from the early days, which were probably in the mid '90s or something, up until today. I think we had a tremendous buzz like 2 years ago when the whole term metaverse become the talk of the town, which is now AI. But if you remember, like the last buzzword was metaverse. So we had times where this was all over the news and all about all over people's opinions. This has reduced a little bit, but I think it's back to a, let's say, normal level. I think what's going on here is just the expected representation of the hype cycle, right? It's a new technology. It's going through the hype cycle like any other technology as well. When we had this metaverse hype, it was, at the peak of inflated expectations, is what it called. And now we're, back down the slope, and we're now at some like a constant trajectory of growth. So we're slowly getting the technology to become a productive technology in the tool set of our technologies. I think what's happening now is a very normal process, and I would say, and I would argue that even today it's not that quiet. If you remember the Apple Vision Pro release, there was quite some buzz around the whole topic. But really what's going on is that in both areas, in B2B as well as B2C, people are looking for the use case for VR, right? The technology is there, the technology works, the devices start to be cool. If you think about the Apple Vision Pro, it feels like a new gadget in town. It feels like people think about, do I need to have this? And now what we're all looking for as an industry are the use cases, the really compelling use cases. In B2B, it looks like we have identified a couple of compelling use cases, for instance, in HR or in training or in digital twins and virtual tours and so on. And we might elaborate on that a little bit in a minute. In B2C, I would say we're still, we're still trying to nurture the ecosystem of creatives, Hollywood studios and content creators, and all the creative power that is out there. We're still trying to nurture that a little bit to find the really compelling use cases also for a B2C market. So while yes, other topics like AI have become more prominent in let's say recent months, I think it's a very natural and a very constant growth in this technology.
We'll come back to AI in a minute, but where are the customers? Where are their thoughts? Are they in sync with the industry, or do you think the technology's ahead of the customers? I'm always
Yeah.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I think your term is absolutely right. I think the technology is still a little bit ahead of the customers, but that's a normal thing, right? I mean, you have typical customer segments, starting with the early adopters, and I think early adopters have understood the technology, are probably already using it, or at least have tried the devices and have tried the technology and have formed an opinion about that. And now we're moving out of this early adopter segment into some kind of a mass market thing. And as a new technology, you have to make a point. Why should a customer invest in this technology? Regardless if from your personal perspective the investment is regarded as a high investment or as a okayish investment or something, you always have to make a point. And with a new technology, that has been the same with TV emerging when there was only radio, and there was internet when there was TV and radio and so on. And every new technology and every new device has to prove its point that it's making something or some aspect of the life of consumers better. And if that means more entertaining or more fun or easier or whatever the better is, but you have to make the point that you make something better, so people actually take the buying decision and go ahead and invest in this content category and or in this device category. I think at this point in time, as just said, we're still waiting for the ultimately compelling B2C use cases. I think they are somewhere within entertainment and on the crossroads of entertainment and collaboration and meeting with other people. That's where this technology has its unique strength in terms of B2C customers. In terms of B2B, I think we're already there. We have already identified compelling use cases within enterprises that justify an investment of an enterprise in this new technology.
Could you give me an example of a use case, specifically an HR or workforce use case that people are applying the technology to?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, HR-related use cases, I would argue, are at this point in time by far the most relevant group of use cases for VR. If we're talking about B2B and if we talk about enterprise use cases, by far. And with HR, you could really go the entire, let's say, HR value chain, from employer branding to recruiting of new employees, to onboarding on your first day or first week, to training, to safety trainings. So all the way through that. So why, and I'll talk about a specific use case in a minute. But first of all, why is it so compelling in the HR space? And it has basically two reasons. The one reason is you are working with your internal with an internal audience. So for an enterprise, it's much easier to apply new technology with an internal audience, as opposed to, for instance, the customers. Customers is some kind of an external audience that you cannot manage that well. If a customer isn't convinced, he will not use it. With your internal audience, that's a different thing. You can, even if the individual might not be convinced that this is the best way, you can just apply it on them. So that's the first aspect. The second aspect is in HR management. It's a lot about formalization, standardization, making sure the quality of a training or an onboarding is the same, regardless if it's the first onboarding or the hundreds or the 1,000th onboarding for a specific topic. How to use a machine, how to run a process, whatever the actual use case might be. You want to make sure the quality remains the same in every new instance of this kind of repetition of the content. So having said that, we see, and to pick the most compelling use case in that space is safety trainings, in our perspective. So, large enterprises have tons of safety trainings, anything from fire to how to deal with, machine breakdowns, electricity, blah, blah, blah. So there's tons and tons of content for safety trainings. And for safety trainings, you typically, what the comparison for our customers is, in the past, these trainings were typically done by a human trainer. So you had to have a date, a time, you have to have an audience being there at this date, at this time. And then the human trainer has a good day or has a bad day. And, now with VR, you have a one-off effort of recreating the training in VR. That's a one-off effort, but platform like ours make it super easy to create that. So hence, with very reasonable costs associated with that. And once you have that, you can have an individual time and date for every new employee, for every employee that has to undergo this safety training. You don't need to rely on a human trainer. You can make sure the quality of the training is exactly the same every time it's applied. So there's lots and lots of benefit that you can actually measure as an HR department, and that's why so many HR departments and so many use cases in the HR space are now being developed and created for VR.
You mentioned before the metaverse, and a couple of years ago, it was sort of the big thing that was being discussed. And it seems like every couple of years, something like that comes out, specifically regarding, virtual reality or augmented reality. And it never lives up to the hype. The metaverse was supposed to basically change the world. It didn't. Does that get in your way? Does it make your job harder to convince people to use tools like yours?
Yes and no. I mean, the hype cycle, as I referred to earlier, you had the same thing with blockchain. That was the hype cycle before, and now we have the AI hype cycle. The AI thing will go through exactly the same. It has inflated expectations at this point, and there will be some kind of a readjustment also on the AI topic in the next weeks and months. So I think to some extent it's a normal thing. I would look at it more from another perspective. A technology that has not gone through the hype cycle is still very far away, right? So a topic that has gone through this hype cycle is at least at a point that a wider audience, an audience beyond the early adopter, beyond the tech nerds and so on, are starting to get aware of. And I, as someone who's in this industry for more than a decade, I'm super happy that everyone out there is now aware of VR technology. I mean, I would argue that after this whole metaverse hype thing, there's almost no one out there who has not doesn't have an opinion about VR or VR technology. A lot of people have had their first encounter, had the first situation to try it. They might not be at the point that they're 100% convinced that it's something for them or it makes sense at all. But you have a starting point for any further discussion and further development. And now it's a task for us in the industry to to talk to managements of enterprises to showcase them use cases to prove the KPIs that this technology makes sense in order to convince B2B. And in the B2C space, I think we should be realistic. The B2C space is still maybe one or two iterations, device iterations away. If you look at the Apple Vision Pro and the price tag of an Apple Vision Pro, we're talking $3,500 $4,000 for a device. That's not a mass market price point, right? That's an early adopter price point. That's a price point to nurture the ecosystem, not to convince mass market audience. So I think in terms of B2C mass market, we're still probably a year and a half away from the real start of some kind of a B2C mass market. In B2B, we're already there. In B2C, there's still have to take a bit of a time.
Now, what about AI? Is AI the kind of technology that you or your competitors would use somehow, and how would you use it?
Yeah. So to start with, AI is obviously I mean, that's not my opinion. Everyone's aware of this. It's a extremely powerful new technology, if you want. It will change so many things in our lives and in the way we do business and the way we do computing or programming and so on. And some people argue, especially some people that look at the annual reports or the reports from Meta, and then they're like, yeah, Meta has moved away from metaverse and is now focusing on AI, or so these kind of where you have this, it's either AI or metaverse or AI or VR. And I think that's totally wrong. I think if you look at the future of computing and the future of technology, metaverse as the umbrella, VR being a part of that, AR being a part of that, spatial audio being a part of, that's the user interface, right? So the term metaverse to me describes mostly the user interface, the way humans will interact with technology. While AI is a technology behind the scenes, it will be embedded in any kind of digital product, digital service. It will just be a part of that, but it doesn't have anything to do with the actual user interface. So to me, it's more like two sides of the same coin. It's metaverse is the front end, is the user interface, and AI is kind of the new the technology in behind the scenes that is enabling so many new great services. So for companies like Meta or any other company investing in both of these technologies, I think makes absolute sense, because in the future of computing will be a convergence of both of these directions and all of these technologies into some kind of a new computing era beyond the smartphone era that we're in right now.
Now, earlier today, I don't know if you saw the news, but Cornerstone on Demand announced that they're acquiring Tailspin. Mm-hmm. And they talk a lot about extended reality and spatial learning. So first question I've got about that is, what do they mean when they're talking about extended reality and spatial learning? Can you translate that for us?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of different kind of words, and in some extent, it depends on which company you're talking to. When Meta talks about metaverse, while Apple talks about spatial computing, I think ultimately it's the same idea, it's the same concept, and we'll see what kind of which term will actually prevail at the end of the day. Same thing with extended reality. I think at this point in time, it's just we have not seen this ultimate convergence of all of these technologies, because the form factors in terms of VR headsets are not small enough to qualify as nice augmented reality glasses, while augmented reality glasses lack the computing power that you need for for compelling 3D visualization and so on. So so the innovative, so the whole technology, or the whole area is still in such early days that everyone is still using a bit of their specific terms. But ultimately, I think this will all converge into, if it's called metaverse at the end, or if it's called spatial computing, I don't know. That's depending on the market power of the big tech companies. But ultimately, I think it's going to converge in this one vision of making it much easier and much more intuitive for humans to interact with technology. I mean, that to me, that is the ultimate vision behind all of these different concepts.
Do you think this particular transaction, marks any kind of milestone, or is it the kind of deal that you expect to see more of as the business grows, or what's your reaction to it?
Well, I mean, I cannot comment on all of the aspects of this particular transaction, but I think it's a sign of maturity of a market if there is some kind of consolidation efforts. In the early days of a new technology, you have a lot of fragmentation, you have a lot of startups, you have a lot of big players trying to, and it's very much characterized by a trial and error kind of market dynamics. And once a market starts to become more mature, also in terms of sustainable revenues, recurring revenues, the ongoing proof of enterprises needing this technologies are becoming more of a must-have technology than a nice-to-have technology in the eyes of many enterprises. That's kind of a development that you would expect in a market. So I expect to see more transactions and more consolidation efforts in our industry in the months and years to come. Really, yeah.
Thanks very much for your time today. It was great to meet you, great to talk with you, and I hope we'll talk again.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, Mark, and thanks for the conversation.
My guest today has been Rolf Illenberger, the CEO of VRDirect. And this has been PeopleTech, the podcast of WorkforceAI.news. To keep up with AI technology and HR, visit Workforce AI every day. We're the most trusted source of news in the HR tech industry. Find us at www.workforceai.news. I'm Mark Pfeffer.